Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I am your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we've got a fun virtual or augmented or just general reality world. Did you notice the pause there? Where was I? We don't know. That's what today's episode is all about. Are we in the virtual? Are we in the real world? Are we in the augmented world? We are talking about AR, VR, and everything in between. What is happening? What is not happening? Where are the investments are or are not going? And where are the new technology advances in these particular industries? And what's to come next? As we've had a lot of conversations around these topics recently, we're looking at the decade ahead. Not so much of what's just happening now and what's going to happen next year, but the decade ahead, because 2020 has proven to be a foundational year, setting the course for so many of these technologies, the convergence of technology and industries coming together for what we're going to see in the decade ahead. We've brought one of the best and the brightest in this industry to share with you, not just what's happening within these, but the fringe as well. So get ready. And if you haven't heard some of the cool highlights that have been happening, here in the States, we just celebrated, and a few other places in the world, we just celebrated Halloween. Google actually had a huge AR, augmented reality experience they put together around Halloween. We also have cities that are now starting to integrate virtual reality into their movie theaters, including this in New York. We've got PlayStation CEO coming out before the PS5 release saying VR is not going to be a meaningful part of gaming for years. So something we've talked a little bit slightly different about here on VCTV. So curious to see where that goes. We've also got Spotify jumping into the VR space and so many more, including if we're going to see Oculus headsets go out again and be sold out for yet another phase of their recent release as well. More to talk about, but before we get into that, a big thank you to your audience for tuning in. Thank you so much. And if you like what you heard today, make sure you click that subscribe button down there in the corner. Do reach out as an investor if you'd like to be on a show like today to join James and myself and other investors to speak about different technologies, industries, and regions around the world to share your thoughts and insights of what you're seeing, what you're not seeing, what you're looking at, and what you wish you could see more of. We'd love to have you here and find the right episode for you. And for you entrepreneurs, less than 60 days, less than 60-ish days until the end of the year. There's a virtual stage here for you at VCTV to come up and pitch us as investors your latest product, service, and company to get not only real-time feedback, but also start building a foundational relationship with us as investors focused on your industry and our live audience as well. Do reach out to the team and or myself, and we'd be happy to find the right set for you. And with that, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day and for putting us up on stage and in lights to have these great discussions. And with that, a big, huge, outstanding welcome and introduction to our guest today, James. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure. A little intro, a little background for the few people in the world, handful that may not know.
That's just, first of all, fantastic intro. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really a pleasure, Kyle. VCTV is my favorite TV. So I'm James Haft. For the last 30 years, I've been focusing on emerging markets, blue ocean opportunities for investors and creating liquidity strategies for the most interesting investment opportunities globally and making them available to the widest audiences possible. So 30 years ago, that was focusing on China and bringing companies from China public on the New York Stock Exchange, where I was lucky enough to do the first transaction when I was at Bear Stearns running Asia. Since 1996, it's been at Pal Capital that I formed, which was formed to focus on the digitization of information and the impact it was going to have on business, society, politics, the economy, and religion, of all things. That's really taken its course now, where when I formed the company, everyone said that's not a business, the impact of digitization. And now everyone says that's ridiculous, it's every business. Before it was easy to focus because, it was limited. Really now it's like I'm looking at the world and it's hard to focus, it's hard to, pick. And so what I've done instead is to fall back on what I think are the common elements and the things that are, fractals that happen everywhere around us. That if you understand one piece, you understand the whole system. And if you understand the system, you understand how things must be working backwards, and start to fit them into a cohesive theory that I then use now as a way to create investment opportunities and liquidity, putting value in community over capital as we go forward.
Wow. And what I mean, really, what made you dive into that? I mean, what has that expanded to today? 2020, as we've talked about before we get into today's subject, I mean, 2020 has changed a lot of things for the game that you particularly focus on. So what made you get into it, and what has 2020 really meant for you at PAL Capital and beyond?
Well, how did I get into it? I think the answer was ADD. And so, you know, I've always been attracted by those things which haven't been done yet. A, because it's fun. B, because no one can tell you you're doing it wrong. And C, you don't have to read a lot of materials because nothing exists. So it kind of let me live in the moment. And then I've always been kind of lucky in being good at pattern recognition, at kind of understanding, you know, that people get the causal arrow backwards, and that if you dissect the situation, you can kind of pull apart and understand the elements that are actually causing what's happening, and that knowledge then becomes a competitive advantage in creating a business or marketing or being an entrepreneur. So that's how I got into it. You know, the things that are happening today. God, I look around today, and you know, the pandemic is horrible in how it's happening and how it's impacting, you know, human life. But on the other hand, it's creating an opportunity for a pause and for a reflection and maybe a redefinition of what's important to you. And so maybe people are traveling a little further down on Maslow's pyramid, you know, a hierarchy of needs. And maybe we're organizing the bottom parts, the parts we were taking for granted. Maybe we're organizing them a little bit better. And maybe that's giving us a little bit more clarity and focus. And so I see that is the opportunity of what I'm looking at right now. And that, you know, I hope people have the ability to find food and employment and support themselves. But now you're starting to understand what we were taking for granted before. And honestly, do we really want the future to look like the past? Is this really about a race back to where we were, right? Or is this an incredible opportunity to redefine and accelerate some of the really interesting things that we could employ to make things happen? And I think that's what's happening in 2020.
I think you're spot on. Me. I called this out in the beginning, right? And you and I have spoke about this on previous episodes of VCTV. Is that this year has really shot us forward, or pushing us to see a different type of decade ahead than the one we just came out of previously, right? We went through the beginning of the Industrial Revolution 4.0, or Industry 4.0, as we refer to it, and looking at that transition of the digital, you know, the digital transformation of the digital age. And we're going into this information age, again, which is known as the Industry 4.0, in a whole different light. I mean, a whole different world is sitting in front of us. And that's not just talking about what's ahead in the future, that's actually talking about what we're seeing with the convergence of all these technologies. And two that we're going to be talking about today, AR and VR, play a big role, but even more, two others I want to talk about with you, you know, blockchain and fintech. I mean, blockchain, you've got so much on the DLT space. We've got DeFi and NFTs, which you and I were talking about pre-show. Fintech, we're looking at, you know, new ways to bank. We've got peer-to-peer financial transactions that are becoming a big trend for next year. We're looking at the CBDD, central bank digital currency space as well. There's so much that's happening. It's phenomenal. I mean, are you seeing the same thing I am as an investor, that there is just so much converging all at the same time that it's going to be an exciting, but also very, you know, pick your bets and pick your lanes to what you know best kind of decade in front of us?
Right. I think convergence is a really important concept. I think you're really nailing something there. And I think that what's happening is the convergence, again, going to fractals where everything's the same. It has to all be the same in different ways for everything to be working together. And that, so convergence is about, like, what is content, right? And what is value? And what is entertainment and what is business, right? And all these things are converging, right? How do I interact with the digital world? How do I interact virtually? How do I interact in present? How do I interact economically? How do I act socially? All those things are converging in different ways, and how we're defining them. So, you know, I believe that the important asset going forward is not capital. I think capital is actually one of the cheapest commodities around right now, especially as it's becoming digitized. and you're getting the fungibility between, between markets and between opportunities, that you're starting to see that value and information, as they get digitized and homogenized with each other, create the opportunity to employ yourself and be entertained without touching fiat anymore. And so that you can create information, you can create excitement, that people can pay attention to you, that as they pay attention to you, your value grows. Some of that is in fiat, but some of it is in your ability to barter and to go into the crypto world and to start to interchange in ways that aren't touching the historic economy. So, right now, especially during the pandemic, we're all spending so much time on our phones and so much time on Zoom, right? And how I market now on Telegram and LinkedIn, right? Those are my tools now, more important than meetings. And the truth is, I'm getting more done now than I got done last year. I'm more effective, right? Honestly, I'm taking less haphazard meetings with people who I may like but didn't really do business for, and who wanted me to help them. But if I was going to look at quid pro quo, it wasn't necessarily there on all the situations. Believe me, I believe in paying forward. I don't keep specific accounting for every meeting. But now that I'm looking at it more macro, I'm focusing more on my business. I'm getting more done.
Which is just game changing. I mean, to your point, and let's switch into real quick these topics that we want to discuss, because you're absolutely right. Digitization is everything right now, and it's also a fun word to say. Digitization, digitization, yeah. Digitization. 3 times, not very fast, but we got it. AR, VR, gaming. What are you seeing from your side? And I know this gets into NFTs. I want to hold that. I want to come back to that. But from the augmented and the virtual reality worlds, what are you seeing changing or not happening in these worlds right now?
So first of all, it used to be there was a big difference between AR and VR. And I used to, handicap it that VR was going to be more important first because it was easier. And I believe barcodes are becoming more and more acceptable as triggers, because AR needs triggers to present the information. And so really the big thing that had to happen was they had to build the QR code capability native into the cameras of the phones, because it was too much. Every step you take in a process that you require a human to make an intermediate step or button click, you reduce your audience by about 50%. So if you have 3 clicks, you're losing 75%, 80% of your audience. So it's really important to have things happen triggered automatically as magic. And so they needed to incorporate the AR trigger into the phone, and they've done that. And now that they've done that, crypto wallets and AR and crypto kitties and all this other stuff you can do, and Pokemon, it's all this stuff is now automatic, and people are starting to play with it. And it's still at the early stages of people understanding the power of that automatic trigger. But having said that, I think AR and VR are going to meld together so that we're not really talking about such big differences between the two. One's submersive and the other is into the location where you are. But the truth is, those are going to start to meld together. No,
I was just gonna say you're spot on. We're seeing that with Apple's AR kit, right? Apple's AR kit is another piece in that puzzle, and you're calling this out very well of how these things process. The process we go through as consumers to walking into this being natural habit, right? And we have the gaming experience where we're getting the chance. We have the early days, just fun stuff to test. And then we have the gaming experience, the Pokemon Go's. We have, there was a Harry Potter game that was the same. We have these early editions of the excitement, the fun, this cool new technology that we can integrate into our lives. And now is coming this middle ground of how does this pull into different industries, whether that be retail, whether that be finance, whether that be something else. How do we mix this all together so that it comes to be natural habit? And AR's kit, or Apple's AR kit, Facebook, Google, Snap, or Snapchat, all of these are playing a huge role in that. Snapchat was a leader in this for so long, no one even thought about it. The idea you could put filters on your Snapchat videos. This is just basic AR that we are now using on a daily basis without actually thinking about it.
Right. So one of the things that's really interesting, so I'm going to say something a little controversial, And if you have a sensor with the beep, get your finger over the button. So exactly. So I founded Condo.com in 2003 with some partners in Florida, and the idea was to be the first vertical site in vertical search site in real estate. And we did a bunch of game changes, additions to that. We had the first site where you could be a third-party blogger on a centralized media site. That was not a thing back then. And we also gave out vanity URLs. So you could be kyle.condo.com and run your business on there, and we would auto-populate it with all your properties from your MLS listings. And so we did a bunch of interesting, but one of the things, we're essentially a display site, right? So we had to get stuff up there. The idea was the search box had to be everywhere, and you had to be one step, search on the first page, every page. So you're never more than typing in, you never had to click to search. But the thing was, how do you get people to see things? How do you get people to stay on your site? How do you make it, that people want to click on the elements and go to where you want? And what we learned pretty quickly was there's two places you should look for where the future is going to be in online connectivity, and it hasn't changed. And that is Apple and porn. So those are two companies that just understand how to get you in, move you around, get you engaged, and click on a button, right? And so, nobody talks about porn because of whatever a puritanical background, but the fact is it's like the number one usage of bandwidth other than Netflix, right? So, so these guys know what they're doing in terms of monetization, in terms of PR and getting people online. And so, what you see now is that we're starting to incorporate those technologies into our everyday life, and that AR and VR are just on the edge of those. So Oculus and those other areas that I just discussed, they're all starting to include Apple and these other visual sites. Are starting to include the bi-directional experience and the multi-sensory experience that you can deliver with AR and VR. My belief is that AR and VR move from being fringe to becoming mainstay infrastructure over the next 5 years. And that your experience of how you work with dealing with this digital world, you're already dealing in a parallel universe. You just don't realize it because it's happening lightly, and it's eroding away the boundaries. But in the future, this stuff's going to be built into your glasses, or your phone's going to work differently and show you a three-dimensional cube that's a hologram. And these things are, I'm not being creative in coming up with this. It's just almost to the point where it's obvious. Right. And so, but I've been seeing this as being where I expected things to go since 1980, right? And here comes my obligatory Neil Stephenson reference, right? So, I just think that the world is that we're all going to have avatars that are going to exist in another dimension. There is another dimension out there. And we're going to be able to interact with people and achieve our goals and entertain ourselves and manage our financial interactions simultaneously, multitasking with more bandwidth through avatars that are essentially digital wallets that are activated by algorithms that either we create or we take off the shelves and are marketed to us, that are existing in jurisdictions that are not necessarily political in nature. So they could be ethereal. And that once that starts to happen, it's already happening, it's already now. Right. That you'll be able to have there'll be a different way that you actually exist in your daily routine.
I mean, I was just looking up the stat, but you're spot on. Okay, so here I found it. So on the avatar note, so there is a new model that's starting to rise up on your point called direct to avatar, and it's instead of direct to consumer being us physical, there is the new direct to avatar model, because this is becoming such an ingrained part of our lives as we have seen things shift, how we're living online, how we're living our lives more digitally and more connected than ever, that this new model has started to pop up. And there is a prediction of this reaching almost 50 billion by 2022. So this would be a $50 billion market of avatar, the direct avatar model here in the next year and a half. That's incredible. I mean, that's not even 5 years, that's 2 years, year and a half out. We're looking at this happening, and you're absolutely right. We're starting to live that as well. I mean, you've got companies like Genies out there who is doing great stuff with avatars. You've got Apple, who's built in avatars into our phones. You've got Decentraland and the Sandbox and many others on the blockchain DLT side that are representing with avatars, and just more in general. I mean, the gaming world is very natural to have that second skin, that second personality. You're absolutely right. This is going to become something. And the idea of having that second layer, add artificial intelligence into that. I wish Gary Fowler was here to add a comment there, but I know you add avatars, everything you just mentioned of having that digital life there, add AI on top of that, bring the AR, VR into it so you can connect in, you can connect out, and the AI can actually replicate your life and continue to live it while you're not there. It's just a whole new world. And this is actually coming. This is here in some parts already today, which is exciting. And how does blockchain play a role in this? Because I know you want to talk about this, as do I. So how do we shift into blockchain and DLT? Where do those start to play a role in the future of this all as we start to build up this next avatar of ourselves?
So interesting. Again, trying to be a little bit contrarian. I think that as long as we have to talk about DLT and blockchain, it's not going to be mainstream. That the day when it's all working is the day when you're no longer realizing what the tech is. I mean, nobody knows how their car works. Nobody knows how their iPhone works. And if I forced you to understand how the iPhone worked, you wouldn't really be excited about it, right?
Yeah.
And so the answer is the same for DLT and blockchain. So the question really is, what are the features and functionality that are going to seduce people into using platforms? And oh, by the way, did you know you couldn't do that without blockchain? Right? That's really what I think is how it works. Because people want to focus on the name of the technology, people want to focus on money, people want to focus on what the value of a token is, but those things are the results, not the causes. Right. So the things that we need in the world to exist for people to be excited and start to onboard to these platforms is for people to start to understand the value of self-sovereignty of their data and the value of being able to do peer-to-peer transactions without centralized authorities as intermediaries, right? And the ability to openly and freely express yourself and have freedom of speech, which I equate how I store my money and how I do transactions, I equate as the most fundamental, essential nature of my freedom of speech. Because I might make stuff up when I talk. I might tell a story, right? Because why not be entertaining, right? But I'm not telling a story when I give my money out. I want to know where my money went, and I'm only spending my money for what I wanted, right? So it's actually a much better indicator of what my free will is. And if you try and, if you use currency or laws or taxation, to change how I'm allowed to do that, then in my book, you're censoring me, right? Mm-hmm. So right now, I'm working on this platform called Vivi that I showed you a little bit earlier, Kyle, which is a really cool AR wallet to hold on to your Batman and your Superman and your anime, and then interact with it, through through your phone in AR, but actually have a living interaction with them and enjoy the usage rather than just holding it. So cheap endorsement, vv.com, VEVE. But the idea here is that they're basically changing the way I interact with my anime. Right? They're actually letting me put it into a room that looks like my room, that I put shelves in, that when I walk in, they interact with me, that I can recreate my room and have my dog come in and play with Batman, right? And so these are things, now if I say, wow, that's really cool, but they have a marketplace behind that. So right now, one of the interesting things is they have rights deals with all the major producers. So Kyle, you're in America, you're not allowed to touch these animes over there, because those are only for the Chinese market, right? What happened? So you were born in the wrong place on the wrong day, so you can't touch that, right? I mean, that makes no sense at all, right? And so as humanity, we're going to stop wanting to be managed that way, right? We're going to want to start to enjoy what we want to enjoy, to talk to who we want to talk to believe what we want to believe, to vote for who we want to vote for, regardless of whether you want me to vote or not, right? And all these different things that are happening right now, where you can see day-to-day examples of centralized authority denying you what you believe is your essential right. And it doesn't matter whether you're on the right or the left, or you're communist, or you're capitalist, or you're black, or you're white, or you're Chinese, or you're Jewish or Islamic. It doesn't matter. right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you're being told it does matter. And you're being told that you need to change your behavior. This is where I get to the political part. You need to change your behavior to fit the system. The system was supposed to exist for your benefit, right? You were supposed to have volunteered into a political system because it represents you and supports you and gives you the opportunities you want. And we've turned into political systems that and economic systems and religious systems and educational systems, and all those systems now are telling you how to behave, and they're denying you opportunity, and they're forcing you to think that you're adverse to your brother, right? And so
with that being said, do you think these types of systems and laws and things will replicate into the virtual worlds? Because we're looking at augmented and virtual reality. Right now, we live these digital worlds kind of free form, right? We only live within the constructs of the game, if you will. Mm-hmm. There's some freedom, but not a lot, right? You're still confined in some kind of virtual world. Even if it continues to replicate forever, there's still a containment of rules that you have to live by. So if we move into this augmented virtual, this mixed reality world, whether that's with our avatars or us physically, do you see systems of this kind of construction coming into play, or does it just work as a game and we just continue to have a set of rules?
To bring it back to the beginning of our conversation, the first concept we talked about, mm-hmm. convergence, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, is your money real or is your money virtual? Now, you think your dollars are actually at that bank? I got news for you. Okay.
Surprise.
Surprise. Right. We have a fractional banking system. They have 1/20th of what they're supposed to have, what you mm-hmm. think they have. Right. Mm-hmm. The whole system now is working on, there's much more virtual cash than there is real. And most of it's not backed by anything except the full faith and credit of a bunch of people that we know are lying to us about everything else. So why wouldn't they be lying to us about this, right? And so, aren't we already there? Again, humanity doesn't realize things have happened until after they've happened, right? And so, what's the difference between virtual currency and real currency, right? It's mm-hmm. just what you believe in. So I think we're already there. So I don't think it's a hard question to say, will it be there in the future? Because I look at it now and I think it's here.
And furthering on the NFT point, because I know this is something you really focus on a lot and have a lot of belief in, as do I. We talked about it a little bit here on VCTV, but it's going to become a popular topic here going into December and then also into 2021. NFTs. So we look at augmented and virtual reality and how they start to blend what we know physically to what we can see digitally. How do non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, and this whole world of digital art, digital collectibles, and the like come back into these two areas, or how do they all merge as well? And maybe that plays into the avatar, maybe that plays into the digital world that you were speaking about. But from your opinion, where do those all converge together?
So again, I think they already have. Mm-hmm. I think that, listen, NFTs was necessary as a concept to give people a framework to imagine and produce digital items, right? That were different than digital currencies, right? All the digital currencies were the same. They were fungible with each other. That was their nature. That's how they performed their service. Then people wanted to make things that could be unique, right? And so the idea, NFTs are great, but NFT is just a category label, right? It's not really a thing, right? No one's really going to make money on NFTs. Right? What they're going to make money on is digitized information that's presentable in different ways, that gives you an experience that people value and that they may want to store, that they may want to share. And that could end up being a song, right? Isn't a song an NFT, right? Mm-hmm. A digitized stream of a song an NFT, right? And so, and it's because they had different rights attached to them in different places they could be seen. So this has already been happening to us around us. So the idea of NFTs, I think, as a broad category, is interesting just as a concept of a new type of asset, a new type of digital asset. I don't think people are going to buy things because they're NFTs. I think they're going to buy things because they think it's a Picasso, right? Here's a new way to own Picasso, right? I can own a share of a Picasso, or I could say Kyle is the next Picasso, and how does he present his work? Well, cool. He does it in a way where I can collect it by clicking buttons, and then I can use it, and it comes with all the rules attached to it, and I don't need a broker, right? And I don't need all these other things. I don't need anyone telling me anything. I can decentralize and do it on my own. And I can have a relationship with Kyle, right? And so it can be bi-directional through the token. So, I just bought a token the other day from my friend Alan Gorin, who's does the LA Blockchain Week, and now has a nice fund with his friend Joseph Holm and Tim Draper, and so they're doing some really cool stuff. And he put out a token, and I don't even know what I was buying. He said, "Listen, he called it the poo-poo token. Who the hell knows, right?" And he said, "Just buy this thing, and I'm going to give you a stream of cool stuff, right?" And so for $2.50 in Ether, I bought this thing, and now in my wallet, every week or two, something shows up. Half of it is him shilling his existing companies, and I'm like, I really need that. I get a hole in my head. But the rest of it, every once in a while, it's a piece of art, or it's a comment, or it's a, hey, you forgot to pay attention to me this week, right? And so, but it's just an experience. So for $2.50 in, or sorry, 0.0002 Ether or whatever, I now have this experience that shows up in one of my wallets that triggers thoughts, that makes me smile, and just that's the kind of thing that's going to start to happen. Is you're going to start to collect these charms that are about experience and are about attention span and are about connectivity, right? All the things that humans need again, going back to earlier in the conversation, this is feeding the bottom end and then moving up in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we're just feeding it through digital data, digital information, digital experience as a new parallel universe to your physical existence. And that's going to start to become more and more amorphous and more converged and more habituated. And that's just what is happening to us already.
So where are the opportunities, James? I mean, you've been investing in the space both on the more blockchain DLT side, and then on the bigger side of just technology as a whole for a few years now, just a few years. Where do you see the areas of opportunity?
I had hair.
Yeah, you had hair. I wasn't going to comment. It looks beautiful as is.
Exactly.
I figured it was just 2020. You just, you cut it low.
My spinal tap big for next meeting. Right.
I can't wait. So where are the areas of opportunity, whether it be AR, VR, the convergence in between, moving into NFTs? Where do you see the opportunities looking ahead for the next year? Because there's plenty, but where are you seeing them and why are they so important?
So first of all, there's opportunities everywhere, and you will go haywire, cross-eyed, and collapse if you try to attack, go after them all. So this idea that, I've been doing this now for 30 years plus. So, every couple of years, it's like, wow, that run was amazing for cable TV, for cell phones, for China, for emerging markets, for Russia, and each one of them comes to it, goes through these processes of a huge jump and a drop, and then a jump again, and then another drop, and then going up the stairs until it becomes part of the major, no longer an alternative asset. And humans continue saying, oh, I missed it. It's over. All the global growth is done. It's the end of the world. There'll never be anything like the internet again. There'll never be anything like the telephone again. There'll never be anything like the printing press again, right? And so, so the answer is that humanity is amazing. And there's so much more on it. And the current one is distributed ledger, decentralization, crypto. That stuff is the current, and it's all built on distributed ledger. It's all built on the concept that that data belongs to the community, not to individuals, and that deals are meant to be done by people who have full vision of the activities and of the ownership, not based on your ability to hide data and steal people from people in each transaction, which is where the legacy system has evolved to. Everyone basically is a Scrooge at the table trying to screw the other guy out of the deal. Where then DLT came around and said, listen, let's have an open table. Let's all see each other's data. And let's decide if we want to press the button and exchange, instantaneously without all the bullshit, without gotchas and fine print that nobody ever read anyway, right? So that's where it's gone. So the answer is DLT isn't changing the world. The world needs change. And DLT is there to help support that change. And if it wasn't DLT, it would be something else. It might be war, right? It could be open warfare. But something is going to keep changing because the human condition is never satisfied, right? And so right now, today, that's DLT. So now you asked me about opportunities. So opportunities are everywhere around you. They're going to center around those situations where the community is being compensated for the value that they're adding to the platform, as opposed to an individual who's basically forcing you to deal in their model. The new way in the future is, instead of being you're born in New York, so you pay taxes in New York and you can't do deals in China, right? Which is the existing, and shut up and enjoy it, right? Because otherwise I'll come show you my gun collection. You know, or run you off the road while you're going to try and to campaign.
More of a tax situation for our audience. We'll keep it a little less political. More of a tax situation.
But think about that. But that's what's happened. These are all fractals, right? And so humanity's looking for ways around these realities. And so there's a lot of opportunities that are coming out now, but look for the ones where users opt in because they're being pulled by the incentive structure and being compensated for the value that they're creating in the situation. Because I believe that is one of the overriding features that's gonna take the day over the next 5 to 10 years. And that you're gonna move from these centralized systems where you're forced to behave to systems where you're enabled to benefit and volunteer into the systems, and you're held to the system by the incentive structure, not by the carrot and not the stick. And so now, to narrow that, because that's very amorphous, I understand, and you've heard this from your college courses, try and stay away.
I have.
Okay, is do what you love. Focus on what you love. Find those things that are changing the way you're behaving, that you're enjoying participating in, is reducing the monotony of an activity that you need to do anyway, that's rewarding you for an activity that you need to do every day, like banking, or shopping. Right? And as you see those items pull you, understand that you're not that unique, that humans are relatively similar, in their needs and their desires and their activities. So one area is to look at the stuff that's attracting you and go for it. If you like the idea of being able to interact with your anime and your comic books, and you see these new platforms where you can have a virtual world where you can create things and own them, so you're no longer giving money into the system and then being told when you want to play a different game, you lost your money, but instead you built up the coolest Mickey Mouse ever, who can also change mountains, and dig for gold, right? And you can bring that over to another world. You'll start focusing on those worlds, and so maybe the platform that makes the anime is interesting. Maybe the guy that owns the content that you're enjoying is interesting. Maybe the guy that owns the world is interesting. And in the new world of DLT, all those are accessible to everyone because all the participants benefit from the success of the platform. That's the new model. And so I think that's an investment perspective that people can have.
I love how you ramp that all together. And James, what is PAL Capital focused on here in the next year? Where are you laying your bets? And I know we just went through where the opportunities are, but specifically for you, and so the audience knows when they want to reach out and connect with you, where the best opportunities are. PAL Capital, what do you focus on? What industries, capital size, et cetera, just so the audience knows a little bit more about you guys as well.
So there's two ends of the funnel here. There's the actual opportunities that we're focusing on, and there's the change that I think needs to happen in the world in order to support those, or that will happen automatically by the changes on the business end. And so I'm focused on platforms. Right now I'm doing a lot of stuff with community building and the interaction between having a community that's generating data and using that data to obfuscate and create privacy opportunities for participants. Because it's turning out that the best way to provide privacy is to hide in plain sight and just be intermingled with enough data. And the places that create the most data are financial and social media sites. And so, sorry, this is my son calling. So he's going to call 4 of the times, by the way. And he wants to learn about crypto. So
perfect opportunity. You should get him in as a guest. I mean, he can learn everything. But go ahead. Sorry, keep going. We're almost wrapped.
We will learn a lot if we put him on the phone. All right. So not all of it's broadcastable. So I told you. All right, sorry. I don't even know how to turn it off now.
This is going to keep going. But so just a real quick to the audience. So there is a lot of things we've talked about in today's episode that I will put in the show notes. So vv.me.
Wait, I'm ready. So, sorry. So,
no, go ahead.
So the idea is places where community can provide value. So there's a lot of, like, I love Cardano. I'm going to talk about something that's not even my project, that I'm not even invested in. I love Cardano. Right? I think that, again, I think Bitcoin is not the thing. Bitcoin is the example of, if the technology works and it gets mass adoption and it has a smart economy, that then creates a cycle of reinvestment and more, and keeps proving out people right, because they're enjoying behaving in it, and because it turns out to be an interesting to opt into, it will keep going up. And so Bitcoin is an example. It's not the thing. Ethereum, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. The idea of smart contracts and the ability to let people enact is fantastic. But it's not the final thing. It's not over because Ethereum came out, right? And so I happen to love Cardano. Cardano, not because the technology. I'm an art history major. Okay, I love Cardano because they have a huge community of engaged people, both on the tech side and the social side and the political side and the human identity and the own your own data side. They have so many people who want it to succeed that I think it's going to succeed by its own nature, because they did the hard part, which is getting the community. People think that the technology is what makes the company. What makes the company is the community. So I love Cardano. All right. I do love VV. I think people should look at this as an example of how we could start to interact with things that we're familiar with in new ways, where you own your own data, where you can enjoy it and you can make a market in it. So you're no longer being used as the product yourself. You're actually a participant that does well with the platform itself. And then the other side of the coin is, it's too hard right now to invest in these opportunities. If my mom came to me, which she does, and said, "How do I invest in this stuff, James?" I say, "Well, here's a digital wallet, and here's a private key, and write down these 12 words. And Mom, don't lose it. But don't lose it. But don't save it in any place that anybody can find it. And put it on a piece of paper, but don't lose that piece of paper. And make sure you type them in correctly." Right? And don't worry, because you find it here, but it's on your iPhone. And if you lose your phone and you don't have your Google Authenticator, oh my God, Mom, I forget it. It's too busy. Let's just have dinner. Right? And so that doesn't work. So I'm working now on creating structures that create liquidity, where, again, going back in a full circle of what I do, what I've been doing for 30 years, is I'm going to repackage opportunities into more familiar investment vehicles, where more people, retail institutional investors, are able to type in 3 letters at Yahoo and see their stock and buy and sell it on a daily basis. And I believe that the right way to do this, that fits in with the ethos, is to create vehicles that have permanent capital, that can make investments on a long term, and can educate their investors and give access to opportunities, while affording daily liquidity to the investor, so that you don't have to buy in for 5, 7, 10 years to the investment. Because I believe that liquidity is the most interesting part of an investment, not the technology. So that's what I'm true.
Awesome. Well, James, we're almost at top of hour, and it's just you and I today. So we had a ton of fun. We got to talk about everything, all realities, real, digital, augmented, virtual, mixed. We mixed them all. We had a ton of fun. And also a quick shout out, happy belated birthday to Bitcoin and the white paper that dropped on October 31st, 2008, 2009, 2009, right? 2009. No, 2008. Am I wrong on that?
I think it's 8.
It was 8. Yeah, it's because it's 12 years. Sorry, guys. Hey, apologies to the entire community. I know I'm going to get tons of flack for that. Apologies. Happy belated birthday to Bitcoin and the white paper, October 31st, 2008. Okay, 12 years. So there you go.
One last thing is, I'm starting with my friend Gordon Einstein. We're going to have a recurring call on 8:30 in the morning, New York time, every Friday, called DeFi Fridays. So if you want to learn about what's happening in DeFi and DLT, find me.
Done.
And we might need a host.
Well, I think I might know one. With that shameless promotion, also V as in Victor, E as in Edward, vv.me. Check them out. I'll drop the link in the show notes. A huge thank you, James, to everything for today. I mean, this was a great episode. a big, big thank you. And a quick shout out, where can everyone find you along with DeFi Fridays and anything else you want to plug, including PAL Capital? Where can everyone
find you? The number one place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm James Haft on LinkedIn. You'll see my beautiful face and my PAL Capital logo. And then www.palcapital.com. And please reach out. And looking forward to opening the conversation and also continuing with you, Kyle. This is really enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you. We're so excited to have you and can't wait to have you back here on VCTV for more. And a big, again, thank you, James, for talking about all kinds of different stuff. I'm looking forward to DeFi Fridays as well. To your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be like James and other investors here on VCTV to talk about different industries, technologies, and regions around the world. We'd love to find the right set and the right topic for you to talk about. Entrepreneurs, we talked about it here. We talked a little bit about VV and other companies. There is a virtual stage here at VCTV for you to get up on, pitch us as investors focused on your industry, looking to hear more about your product, to give you real-time feedback, also build foundational relationships with us and exposure to our live audience. Do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right set for you. With that, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. A big, big shout out as well to James and to Crypto. If you don't know, Crypto, little dog right there, our new guest star. Thank you, James, again, and Crypto for joining us today. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott. We'll be back here with more VCTV soon. Thanks, James. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
What?
All right.